Hey guys, welcome back. I just thought I'd do a quick video on some of the Sunday stories that have come out. Quite a lot of news come out this week. It's one of those quiet weeks. There hasn't been many games, so there's been quite a lot of news in the Sunday papers. I thought I'd give a couple of thoughts on some of them. As I said in the previous video, standing here, the backdrop is Sao Paulo, Brazil, for those who are wondering. Lovely city, very vibrant, great to be here, but it's a bit raining today. It's the day of the Grand Prix today, so the rain's not doing well yet. Anyway, back to the rugby. First story comes from Report. Hendrik Renier breaking up quite a few stories today, my mate Hendrik. And normally Hendrik is 99% spot on, so you can almost take it as almost law when Hendrik breaks a story. So interesting ones, but some strange ones today. But left field at times. The first one being SA Rugby going to back Abdullah Benazi in the World Rugby vote for chairman. Now Bill Beaumont's left, so there's a whole lot of people fighting, and there's an Australian candidate who New Zealand are backing. So there was the thought that South Africa might back the Sanzar partner, and they haven't. They've gone for Benazi. The story says that SA Rugby made a decision on the merits of the presentation, but listen, we all know how these things work. There's been some backdealing there. There's been some promises made, and it could be very much a strategic ally position. Of course, rugby is going to move forward. It needs some new ideas. I'm very clear when I say that the old school way of looking at Bill Beaumont's way of looking at did rugby no favours under his reign. Rugby has actually regressed for me, and I think we missed a lot of ways of growing rugby because of being too scared to actually go ahead and grow the game. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure it'll come out why South Africa supported Benazi. He's of course the guy who almost broke South Africans' hearts in '95 at that game in Durban, where he looked to have scored, but the referee decided he hadn't. It was such a close move. I was at the game. It was very tense, and a great rugby player. Whether he's going to be good for World Rugby will be good, interesting to see. Certainly France have got a lot of backing through the money that they throw around the world. But it's going to be interesting to see that South African rugby's backed France on this one. Not sure why, but I'm sure it'll come out in the next couple of weeks. Second story that came out of the papers today, a report, is that there's an IPL type tournament that's looking to target South African rugby players, apparently offering salaries up to $900,000 for the tournament. Sounds all very good. We've seen these type of tournaments try before. They've never really worked. There's a bunch of problems that they have to sort out before they can work. One of them being World Rugby's calendar. Where do you fit in such a tournament? Players are under contract to their clubs, so unless you get the buy-in from clubs and national rugby unions, these things are going to happen. But like always, we see money talks, as they say. Yeah, money buys the whiskey. Talk is cheap, but money buys the whiskey. Was that old quote from Peter de Villiers? And we've seen World Rugby given to Qatar and accept sort of a Test Nations tournament. It looks like they're going to accept it. It's going to Qatar, Saudi Arabia. No worries about sport washing, no worries about money or human rights or anything like that. Money is what counts in rugby, it seems. So I suppose if somebody comes up with the right amount of cash, this is certainly something that could happen. I'd love to see how it's going to work, though. I'm sure for players, there's definitely these types of tournaments that people look at, but unless there's big money and unless there's buy-in from World Rugby and the clubs and the national unions, you're not going to see players give up their contracts very easily, the security they have with their clubs. So a lot of water still to flow under this bridge. Not sure it's going to happen, but definitely a story that gets perked up every now and again. It'll be interesting to see how this develops. Another story coming out of Report, this time about the test against Scotland. The story that Ruan Nokia has secured the number 5 jersey. That's interesting because Franco Mostert's back. It can only be because Franco Mostert probably hasn't played as much, and Ruan has done enough in those last 5 tests he's played. He's impressed the Boks. He started, remember, he wasn't in the Rugby Championship squad, and he's really come through when the Boks had injuries and played extremely well. So I think that's probably why they're going to go for a bit more continuity, gives him another test, and he'll probably partner Evan Etzebeth there. I expect to see Sos on the bench probably somewhere. But interesting, we might go see a few other changes for this game. I wouldn't be surprised if against Scotland we might see Wilco Lowe make an appearance somewhere, maybe even Cameron Honeycomb. But a lot we'll see how it goes this week. Not much news coming out of the Bok camp in terms of the selections, but it's certainly going to be an interesting selection against Scotland. On that, there's also a related story there about Rossi having a look at the Bulls' locks going into the next couple of years. There's certainly some talk about them. Interesting that he didn't mention somebody like JD Schickerling. I thought he might have been coming to the conversation. Maybe it was just a specific question that was asked, but certainly looking at the Bulls, like Kobus Visser's done very well there. Reinhard Landman's coming through, and JF van Heerden was the SA Under-20 captain as well. So certainly some talent coming through there. And at some point, the Boks are going to have to try and replace Eben Etzebeth and Franco Mostert at some point. We know that's going to take place at some point, so just get my finger out the way there. So it'd be interesting. But certainly there's going to be a number of players coming through, and I think there's going to be players putting their hands up. Cornet Rolls, another one. The Sharks, I think would put his hand up for the next couple of times, but obviously Rusty knows what he's doing. He's been giving a lot of players sort of starts, and I'm sure in the next year when they play Italy and looks like Spain in those June tests, we'll see a very young team taking them on, and a lot of players getting some starts there. This is probably the hardest thing for the Boks now to make this transition. There's a number of players that are going to be over 35 by the time the next World Cup comes around, so they've got to look at that. The squad they selected for these autumn internationals, certainly not a squad that's got too many youngsters in it. A lot of those debutants are out of the squad. Some of them have come in through injuries now, but you'd expect mostly the tried and tested to play these tests against England, Scotland and Wales, and then next year a lot more experimentation to happen, especially with all the focus on the British and Irish lines in Australia and France touring New Zealand. Then some news coming out of the Saturday's internationals. The first one that's important for the Boks, it looks like Darcy Graham injured himself against Fiji and scoring the 4 tries. That's a pity because he certainly would have been starting against the Boks. It'd be interesting to see if he comes through the week, but they were already without Carl Steyn, so they've got some problems on the wing there, and one or two other injuries that they're worried about as well. But yeah, you can still see a formidable squad with Duhan from the Maro probably playing on the other wing. Of course, him and Darcy Graham are going head to head with the try scoring record, and it's going to be interesting. Scotland will definitely pick a strong squad, and we'll probably hear a lot more talk about this in the week as we go ahead. But Darcy Graham would be a pity if he does miss the game. Then the other story coming out of the All Black team is that they're going to lose 2 players for their big game against Ireland on Friday night. Cody Taylor, the hooker, who I think is a huge loss for them. He's really one of the guys. He had led the hooker this week. He's also one of the guys who really puts his body on the line every time he plays. Probably one of their most prolific players, underrated players. Really a guy that's certainly deserves a lot more plaudits than he gets a lot of the time. The other one is, of course, Beauden Barrett, who Stuart Barnes called over the hill last week. He certainly didn't look over the hill in the test against England, looked pretty decent, but he seems to have a head injury, and so probably with an HIA is going to miss the game against Ireland. It's going to be a massive game against Ireland. New Zealand definitely have players to play. Damon McKenzie will probably come in at 10, and you'll really see a tough game, but New Zealand really want to win this one against Ireland, and so do Ireland. So massive match on Friday, but it's just pity those 2 players are out. Second to last story is the one that also comes from a report from Hendrik. Seems that the Stormers have been looking at Duhan from the Maro to come through there and play for the Stormers. Not quite likely to happen. I think any player playing in those European leagues at the moment could probably, we've seen it with a lot of English players at the moment going over to France. If you want to make a payday, you go to France, play for a French club, make a lot of euros. Coming back to South Africa for somebody like Duhan doesn't make sense. He doesn't get, Stormers won't get pony money. SA Rugby has a players of national interest, PONI, and they give money to help top up contracts. Because he's a Scottish international, SA Rugby won't give any money for him, so it makes no sense to take away an opportunity for a South African player. So it might sound nice in theory, but I doubt that's ever going to. It's a nice headline, but I don't think it's going to happen. Of course, the other interesting one is one I think will happen is that the Stormers are negotiating for the Sharks. Ntuku Nchunu, who looks like he's going to leave Durban. Sorry, lots of lots of noise outside here. Nchunu is obviously a Springbok. They're looking for a replacement for Stephen Kitsoff. Kitsoff, of course, is under cloud. He's going for a neck operation. There's some talk that he might not come back to the field. Obviously hoping that he's a double World Cup winner, great player. Kitsy's a great, spicy plum. We'd love to see him back on the field again. But if it is that he doesn't come back, then we do understand that the Stormers have to look further anyway. Nchunu's not getting a regular game time with Oxenchair there. Yeah, and so I suppose he is a good target for the Stormers. John Plumtree's remarked the other day that players move. That's what he said when he was asked about Mchunu. So it sounds like it's on a deal. There's also some other talk. Cobus Reinach's been looked at to come to the Stormers. The Stormers obviously looking at some halfback combinations. It looks like Herschel Yankees might go to France. Paul de Vet has been targeted by the Bulls. It sounds like it's a done deal at the end of the season. So they're going to probably have to look for another 9 somewhere. So that's the stories coming out of the transfers there, out of the report, out of Hendrik Cronje's story. So it's been very interesting to see. Then the last one, which was one kind of a surprise, Joe Maro announced his retirement on Saturday, of course, after causing a storm by calling for the haka to be to be revoked. He then withdrew from the team, left the camp. It wasn't apparently, according to all the English media, that had nothing to do with what he said. And then he subsequently announced his retirement yesterday. Very strange way to go out, but that's, I suppose, Joe for you. He's a character, I suppose that's what you call him. He's a man who's blocked me on Twitter after he didn't like what I said about the Tom Curry thing in the World Cup. But certainly somebody who's added some colour to the game. And it'd be interesting to hear in the coming weeks what exactly led to that decision. Certainly sounds like there might be something more to that, but I'm just speculating, have no, just what I've read. But it's just a very strange way to go out after causing a media hype and then leaving the camp and then just deciding that's it. He is 34, so I suppose as a prop that is more or less the time. He could go on a bit more, I suppose. But yeah, that's his decision at the end of the day. A very strange one to make, of course. We did see how England fronted the haka. It was really great to see them walk up, and it's so nice. I think when you talk about the haka, I think we'd like to see teams fronting the haka, but more challenging the haka properly and respectfully, but also forcefully, and get the cameraman out there. I think we all know that's what ruins the whole thing, and it was great to see England put up a bit of a challenge on Saturday. Certainly set the tone for the game, and that was great to see. Anyway, that's just some thoughts on Sunday's newspaper stories. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you think of any of the stories down below in the comments. I do read them all. And if you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button. And from Sao Paulo, ciao.